All right, guys, how to squat for growth, part 3, using a squat wedge to maximally grow those quads. Let's get it. All right, everyone, since episode 1 and 2 went really well with this improving our squat for growth, I thought, let's keep expanding on this. Let's keep taking your squat to the next level. And what's the next thing we can really address here? And that's using a wedge. It's really popular today. If you look on Instagram, a lot of the guys, influencers, top pros, amateurs, are all squatting with wedges. And you may ask why they're doing that. There's a multitude of reasons. All right, the first reason we're gonna use a wedge is just simply putting the focus on our quads. So what that's gonna do, by raising our heel off the ground, that's gonna force all the emphasis to the front portion of your leg. Very similar if I took a wedge and moved to the front and had your toes elevated, that's gonna really put you in a position to optimally maximize your hamstring and glute development. So that to me is one. The number 2 reason is gonna be if you lack ankle mobility to be able to squat deep. So what I mean by that is, as I sink down with my feet flat on the ground, some people don't possess the ankle mobility to really get deep without their feet folding in, out, in, or around, their heels coming up. And honestly, we don't want that because that's gonna put way too much pressure on the knee and not enough on the muscle tissue. So if you add that wedge, it's gonna allow me to sink straight down with my hips and really get those quads. So that's the reason number 2. Now, the third reason, and we're gonna talk about this, is adding the wedge is if you have really long femurs. So for example, my body, I'm roughly 5'10", my body and femur length is meant to squat. I responded really favorably to it early in my bodybuilding career. I loved it, I was good at it, I was strong at it. I can sink down to my hamstrings sit on my calves, no matter how big or small they were, and my feet stay flat on the ground. It was never an issue for me. But for guys who have really long femurs in relation to their torso and lower leg, what that's gonna do is it's gonna force their torso. In order to get depth, they have to begin to lean forward. And if you watched episode 2, we don't want that to happen. We want to keep an upright torso. So we're gonna bring on the wedge in order to do that for people with longer femurs. So again, for one or all 3 of those reasons, because listen, you could be someone with long femurs, poor ankle mobility, and need to target your quads. All 3 reasons, so a perfect reason to use these. Today we're gonna use the singular wedge. Prime also makes 2 separate wedges where it's even better because you can position them at a different angle based upon how you want your toe angle. But today we have a singular wedge here at Elite. So let me show you what some of these reps look like. All right, so with the wedge and setting it up, I want it to be really close to these J hooks. So let's say I fail and my heels are still on this wedge, and I'm here, and I get my last rep, and my legs are so fucked up that I can't even take a step forward. Literally from this position, I can just fall into the rack. So let me show you what that looks like. I know this seems very simplistic and basic, but let's say this is failure and I can't even move. I'm just gonna fall into the rack and rack. Again, seems very simplistic, but a very big pro tip, because if you squatted, it's a true failure and don't have a spotter, you need to be able to fall into that rack. So I'm using this spatter bar, I'm gonna eat shit and it's gonna hurt. So let's get on this bar and we're gonna focus on the 3 things we just talked about. So optimal quad activation, so meaning driving your knees over your toes, feet flat on the wedge, and then staying really upright with my torso. We're gonna focus on all 3 things here. So again, I'm using a spatter bar here, but it can be a straight bar or a transformer bar. Safety squat does not matter, the bar type, or even a front squat. So here, knees over toes, feet flat on the ground, upright torso. I'm not leaning this way. I'm upright here, all quad. Look at that, I can sit literally right down on my heels. I can literally take a on my heels. Boom. Boom, all quad. So a very cool coaching cue that I heard a decade ago from Jim Wendler on T Nation was, he said something he teaches his athletes is, if it's a hip dominant squat, meaning glutes and hamstrings, I want to shit on the floor. So take a look at this. I'm gonna hold on here just so I can talk and be intelligent. Look at that. I'm literally, if I took a right now, I'd be on the floor. Now, let's say I want to squat for quads. I need to on my feet. See the difference? Hips back versus hips forward. So, a little graphic, but very effective. So again, that's a coaching cue you can take home and apply. That's what that wedge allows me to do, really sit down on my heels and get great depth and range of motion. So no matter what my femur length is, I can keep my torso upright, because at the end of the day, that's how we activate the quads, which is why a lot of times you hear taller guys, meaning over 6 foot, 6'2", 6'3", or even guys who are shorter would have long femurs, they'll say, oh, squats I feel in my low back, my glutes, my hamstrings. They opt for things like leg press, hack squat to really target their quads, because that doesn't matter, because they really, with that pad, is keeping their torso upright. So again, squatting for growth, specifically quads, I want to use that wedge, employ it, and really get good at squatting with that wedge, and I promise you'll see your quads grow. Thanks for following, guys. Another quality video from Chris Edmonds TV. Like, share, subscribe, comment below with the #1 tip that you got from today's video below. And I'm going to keep bringing these more great quality tips, and we'll be back for episode 4 for Squat with Growth.